Hey, I'm Jesse. I am a friend of the Electric Bike Journal and father of two, and I'm here today to talk about the Rad Power Bikes Radwagon 4. More specifically, my transition from the Radrunner 2 to the Radwagon 4. You may have seen a previous ebike video where you guys followed me on the Radrunner, and we went to pick up my son James from school, and we went to the beach and the park. We talked a little bit about how we were using it, when we got it, why we got it, what we were loving about it, and if you haven't seen it, we'll link it below. In that video, we had talked about how running errands around town with my son James, taking him to school or going to the park, was super practical on the Radrunner. It was a pretty solid replacement for the car. His school is just 2 miles from home, so it was super easy and added a new layer of practicality for us where we could just go run errands even. I started using it for work, and I didn't think I was going to. I thought it was gonna be just a take a James's school thing, but I started incorporating it to my own life more than I thought I would. So fast forward between that video and now, our second son, Simon, was born, and actually we were pregnant at the time we bought this. So I think the grand design in the beginning was always to have both. It was to have a long-tail cargo bike that we could take both kids on, and then have the smaller single-seater to have my wife along with, and also if we needed to splinter off and take one kid here and one kid there, that we'd be able to do it all with both. We live in a temperate coastal Southern California town that doesn't really have a lot of hills besides this one that we're up on just for the good view today. Getting around town on these things makes so much sense, and there are certain months of the summer where things get a little congested with cars, and honestly you have an advantage over everyone being on an e-bike. So we got the Radrunner first because the price of admission was much friendlier, and it was still a ways off before our youngest Simon was going to be able to come along. We've now reached an age where Simon is along for the ride, which is super exciting. I think it sort of adds this freedom that's been missing and just adds this layer of fun. It's summer right now, so we've been doing quite a bit of riding. I think since I got this, I've probably done a couple 100 miles with the boys, and it's been awesome. After we had ripped around on this for the better part of a year and it came time to add the long-tail cargo bike, I definitely did my due diligence and weighed a lot of options. I looked at most long-tail cargo bikes that you've seen on the market. I think in the beginning I was kind of looking at the fancier mid-drive motor options, most of which you're probably well aware of. I think I realized that the value to price ratio on this made a lot of sense for me, and I think a lot of what everyone loved about mid-drive motor cargo bikes was that they more closely emulated a real bike riding experience. And I've been riding bikes seriously for the better part of the last couple decades, and I still do ride bikes a lot, you know, analog or acoustic bikes if you want to call them that. So gravel bike, mountain bike is where I get the real riding experience. So for me, people's complaint about how they just go fast and you're not actually riding a real bike and it doesn't feel like a real ride, for me that was a non-issue. And what I actually love about a hub motor is the instant power delivery, and that you have a throttle and that you can just get on it and go. I want that. I want to ride these around like a bike messenger, just like fast, get there, do the thing, and then come back. And the longer leisurely rides that are more exercise-based are on the acoustic bikes. So we had previous experience with Rad Power Bikes from a couple minor issues in the past with this guy. And so based on that experience, I felt like going with Rad Power Bikes again for the long tail made a lot of sense, having had positive experiences all those times. And I actually got to ride one and realized they're super fun. So I was happy to be back home on a Rad Power Bikes for the Radwagon 4. We have been super happy with our choice since we made it. Also, in choosing the Radwagon this time, I think one thing that stood out to us was the modularity of it, being able to kind of configure a ton of different parts to have it be specifically tailored to you. With the Radrunner, we just threw on the Yup seat and obviously the front basket here, which was cool, but this helped us add a little bit more. And we ultimately put together replaced the minivan kit that is on the website inadvertently. I didn't think I actually realized we were doing that until I looked at the build kits later. I love that sentiment because that's exactly what we do with it, right? There's times that we could take a car trip to do something around town. Going from 2 seats really easily, we can pull the Yep seat off this guy, throw it on this guy, the deck pad comes off easily. But my eldest son, James, loves the deck pad and the running boards and being able to get on and off by himself, which he wasn't able to do with this since there's no running boards option. So he's amped. So it actually stays like this most of the time. It stays like this all the time. But, you know, if we wanted to throw the Yep seat on easily, we could. And so modularity was a big plus for us. Earlier I said this was a video kind of outlining my transition from the Radrunner to the Radwagon, but I think that may be a misrepresentation. I haven't transitioned from one to the other. I actually still use both interchangeably. My wife and I do as well. There's certain times we meet up separately and then we have to swap kids. This takes 2, that takes 1, or we can split. But sometimes I'll go run errands on my own and I'll still take the Radrunner, and the Radrunner is fun. It's definitely a different feel, so I'll get into the comparison. Comparing the two, there might be more differences than you might think. The power on the hub motor is the same. I think it's the same. And besides the obvious wheelbase difference and tire size difference, they do handle quite differently. I think the Radwagon, having a longer wheelbase, tracks a little bit slower, which isn't obvious, but I think what gives it the biggest difference is actually the tune. The torque curve on the Radwagon is a lot more gradual and linear, which I think is probably a really good idea for having 2 kids on. The Radrunner is a little rocket ship. I feel like the torque curve is instant, right? Like you get on it, you're on mode 4, you get on the pedals and it just jumps. It's obviously got a really short wheelbase and a lower center of gravity, so it feels a lot more shreddy, which is super fun. But I did notice it takes a bit to get up to full gas on the Radwagon. That also has to do with gear selection, right? You've got a 7-speed cassette on the Radwagon, and the Radrunner is a single speed, is a big gear. So I think you get a little help from the tune where it just helps you drive that big gear right away. Other differences we noticed were just to set up the bike feel. You've got a lot more options with the Radwagon. The adjustable, quick release adjustable stem that allows you to adjust the height and then reach is really awesome. And it has a more elongated cockpit, at least how I have it set up, whereas this is really compressed. This one's short and low and fast and fun, and this, in my opinion, feels more like a regular bike. I think that overall, the Radwagon is probably a good everyday option for a person who's coming from an analog bike who wants to add an electric component and maybe haul some more gear or add kids to the mix. The Radrunner is fun for a solo person. Obviously you can take the kids along or even a full-size adult along. In conclusion, the Radrunner Radwagon 4 has been the addition that we needed. I would say it is the subtler of the two and makes a lot more sense in a lot more broader applications than maybe the Radrunner. So for anybody considering a kind of family cargo e-bike, even if you just have one kid right now, honestly, I think the broader application of the Radwagon makes it a winner. Obviously the price point's higher, but I think it's a worthwhile investment because it really does help replace a lot of car trips. We're really happy. I love that we have both. It's been making me really happy when we get the whole family out together, whether it's just to kill time to go to the beach or to go actually run errands or go out for dinner. I've been really happy having both now, having everyone together. That's all I got for you today. My buds at ebike would appreciate it if you'd subscribe, and I'm sure they'll have something fun for you coming soon. So thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you later.